Good evening. Monday, May 13th, 2019. It is 6:03, and I call to order the special meeting of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Committee for the City of West Sacramento. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gail, Melinda, nice to meet you. We'll start with roll call. Julian McMichael.
Present.
Melinda Garcia.
Present.
Don Schatzel.
Here.
Denise Domke. Not with us tonight. Gail Clower.
Here.
Alfonso Voices.
Present.
And alternate member Alicia, is she in here? No. Okay. And we have a quorum, yes? Excellent. Oath of allegiance for public officers. Are we swearing Gail in tonight? Awesome. It's about time, Gail.
Well, you know. All right, Commissioner Clower, if you'll just stand and right hand, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
Gail Clower. Gail Clower,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Once again.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, thank you.
That brings us to item number 1, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. We do ask that anyone wishing to address the commission on this or any other item this evening, please fill out a request to speak card and return it to the clerk. In front of the clerk, there is a timer to ensure that everyone has a chance to be heard. We ask that all comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Also, in front of the clerk is an analog flip chart which indicates which agenda item the commission is currently considering. We accept the request to speak cards up to the conclusion of the reading of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the staff report has been read and the commission questions and public testimony have begun, we do not accept any further speaking requests on that particular agenda item. If you're addressing the specific agenda item, please turn in your cards as soon as possible, but definitely before the conclusion of the staff report for that particular agenda item. We also recognize that for some, speaking in public can cause anxiety. So we request that there be no boos, catcalls, or even applause as we try to maintain a civil discourse in the chambers. Thank you. How'd I do? Am I good? All right. Okay, Commissioner Communications. Who has some communications to share? Julia?
Now, at a special meeting, can I bring up ancillary matters? Are we focused just on what's on the agenda today? Because I have some things to bring up.
Can you give us guidance, or Tracy?
Sure, you can bring them up. You can raise them now.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that our own Christy Jordan at the State of the City function just this past week was honored for her community pride. She's involved in so many things, not only this commission, but music booster and education, and we're very proud of you, Christy. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I wanted to report on the sidewalk. Jeff Knorr gave a poetry reading, which I was very pleased to see. It was a wonderful event. I've posted it, and if anybody would like me to send them that event, I can do that. Got the art in public places. Thank you, staff. I've been thinking, since the council has communication assignments, that I am a little overwhelmed with the scope and breadth of what is going on right now. And I was hoping that on certain other commissions, we could maybe develop a liaison. For example, Alfonso bringing forward the Historical Society's reports, but similarly, the Parks Commission, the City Council meetings, perhaps even the 2x2 Schools Committee, Planning Commission, that if someone were interested in following up and looking at those meetings, either on broadcast or in meeting notes, that we could be updated so we just feel current with what's going on in other commissions. How think you?
So I'm understanding that we sort of divide and conquer what's happening on other commissions and report back to one another? Is that
Conquer might be
conquer? Okay.
a high aim, but
Oh, okay.
But just to keep us in the loop with things that sometimes I feel a bit blindsided because so much is happening in this city right now.
Sure. I will talk to Connie and Tracy about the best way we can look after that.
Good, thank you.
I want to make sure everyone here on this dais is receiving the weekly email with the city's report on activities,
And the
which is a good way.
newsletter?
The newsletter, yeah,
Newsletter,
which
yeah.
is a great way to keep up too, but we'll talk about that.
That's very helpful, thank you. Also, if there could be a schedule of broadcasts for the commission, I can pretty well catch up with the city council, but other commissions that are being broadcast on the cable access channel, that would be helpful, just to keep up on that.
Okay.
And that concludes my queries for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Any other commissioners have, yes? Mr. Schatzel, go ahead.
Every year, the California Park and Recreation Society has a conference, and it rotates. This year it happened to be in Sacramento. Next year, San Diego, Long Beach, right. But I gave everybody a copy of the program and of all the sessions that they had just about a month ago now here in Sacramento. And one of the sessions was a walking art tour in Sacramento, which I thought was intriguing. And so I had to ask Sam, and our own Sam, if I can find it, page 76, who was on the planning committee of the entire conference. And so I wanted to mention Sam and congratulate him at the same time for doing that. But I did ask him if Westsac was included in that tour, and actually it wasn't. So I'm hoping maybe one day when it comes back, probably 3 or 4 years from now, it'll go LA and then San Francisco in the back, okay. But it would be cool, I think, if we can all remember, 3 or 4 years from now. But then maybe we can include West Sacramento in that art tour. But again, good for Sam to be on the planning committee. That is not a little deal. It's a big deal. It's a lot of work, you can tell. So just the fact that he was representing the department in the city of West Sacramento is a big deal, so good for him.
Commissioner, or Chair Jordan? Just a note to add on to what Mr. Schatzel said. Both Katie Jacobson and I actually led a parks tour as part of that conference, and we decided to focus on art in parks. And we started at the barn, and we visited Garden Park and the Mill Street Pier and the subtile art piece, and provided a nice handout that highlighted how we're integrating art into our park system. So it wasn't part of the arts tour, but we tried to bring that in as part of the parks tour the day before. I think it was the day before the conference officially started.
It's great to be sneaky. You can get it in there. It's all right. I'm glad you did that. Thank you. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other commissioners with something to report? Communications? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to share a little bit from the West Sac Historical Society. I know we're on the agenda for another item coming up, but we had our exhibit opening across the way at the community center for our journey for the LGBT history of the bars, the gay and lesbian bars of West Sacramento back from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that'll be an ongoing exhibit through this year. And we'll be having 2 different events, one in June during Pride Month and one in October during LGBT History Month. And the one in June will be a book signing and reading from William Berg, local historian. He has his book coming out, Wicked Sacramento. That's coming out June 25th, and then we're having our book reading and signing on June 26th across the way between 5:30 and 7. So that should be coming up hopefully in the newsletter and stuff. We just put together the event. And within his book, perform on the riverboats here in West Sacramento. So it should be pretty interesting. So that's what's going on in the Historical Society.
Thank you. Any further comments, commissioners? No? Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda. Consideration of support for, workshop draft on Washington District Public Art implementation. Oh, minutes first? Thank you. Aha. Consideration of approval of the minutes of the February 19th Commission Orientation Meeting and February 25th Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission Meeting.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Julia and seconded by Dawn, or should I say last name, Julia McMichael, Dawn Schatzel.
Call for vote.
Oh, yes, call for vote.
All those,
Aye.
Christie?
All those
All those in favor?
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hearing none, motion passes.
Motion passes to accept the minutes of the previous 2 meetings, yes? Thank you. And now on to regular agenda. Workshop on the draft Washington District Public Art Implementation Plan. The purpose of this report is to conduct a workshop with the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, ACHP, on the draft content of the Washington District Public Art Implementation Plan. Hi, how are you?
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairwoman Jordan. My name is Katie Yancey. I'm a Community Investment Manager in the city's Economic Development Department. I was here in front of you about 2 months ago, February 25th, where we brought a preview of some of the items related to this project that we're taking on, and we brought forward, we have, excuse me, we have several sites that we've identified for potential art installations in Washington, and we brought 8 of those sites forward for your consideration on the 25th, and we're here to conclude that workshop tonight, where we will be discussing the 4 priority projects that have been identified by staff based on timing, other triggering events associated with those projects. We're also going to bring the remainder of the art sites that we identified, the art concepts. There's 4 more art concepts that we'll be bringing forward this evening. And then we'll be doing a more lengthy workshop on the policies that we're recommending to incorporate into this master plan. Originally, we had planned on providing you with the actual draft narrative of those policies, but unfortunately, there was a duplication in your packet, and so you received 2 of attachment 1 instead of 1 of attachment 5.
It happens.
Your packet has since been updated, so when we realized that error, our consultant agreed to add some additional slides and walk you through that, since you'll be seeing that for the first time, since it was just delivered this afternoon. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jerry Allen with Cultural Planning Group. He's going to be doing this presentation this evening, and as I mentioned, there'll be quite a lengthy walkthrough of that policy narrative, since it was not provided in your packet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for another opportunity to update you on the plan for public art in the Washington district. This has been a very gratifying journey for us in a sense. By the way, I want to introduce my partner, David Pletner Saunders, who is with us and has been working on the plan with me. This is a special opportunity because most public art programs really take the form of a series of projects that are basically independent projects, one after another, without any particular relationship between the projects. And so there's an extraordinary opportunity here when you're identifying a group of projects at the same time to create something that is very special. And I'll talk a little bit about that more, but I really regard this as a very important opportunity. What you see on the first slide is just a map of the locations of the artworks, and as you can see there, it is quite a concentration of art in a relatively small geographic area. I just need to figure out how to... Use the roller. Oh, the roller. Okay. Technology drives me nuts. So we really identified 3 key goals in a step. Oops.
That's more than 3.
It jumped on me. It certainly is.
I'm good, I can see it.
There we go. Now, I'm going to set it down very gently. The first is really to enhance the placemaking and the wayfinding that is associated with this district, and to take advantage of, one, that compact geographic area, but also to create connections to the river, which is one of the great assets that this city possesses. The second is that the city is really moving toward transit-oriented development, so the art program can play a very significant role in enhancing that kind of development. And then finally, and this is one that emerged from the planning process, is the creation of a nationally recognized collection of art for the benefit of not only the citizens of West Sacramento, but presumably to visitors to the city. And so we really think that that's the great opportunity that is offered by this project that doesn't normally come along in a public art program. I'm doing it gently. We did a very extensive review of sort of the policies that lead up to and feed into the development of this plan. It's important that this plan align with the other policy goals of the city. And I won't read through them all, but these are the documents and plans and policies of the city that we have consulted to make sure that this plan is in alignment with the existing policies and plans of the city. So how does one create a nationally recognized collection of art? Now, normally, as I said, in a public art program, you have a series of basically disassociated public art projects. You accept the project when it comes along. There's a project for this park or this entryway, and the works are not related to one another. And the opportunity here is to create a curated set of artworks, a collection of artworks that really becomes, that will distinguish West Sacramento as a destination for public art. And to me, that's an extraordinary opportunity. So how does one do a curation? Normally, I would assume that in most cases you set up an art selection panel that's related to a particular project, and they go through the selection process. Eventually, they make a recommendation to you. You accept or modify that recommendation and pass it on to the city council for action. In this case, we're recommending that you put together a master artist selection committee composed of 5 to 7 professionals in the public art field, really experts in the field, really people who understand the whole national picture of public art and maybe even international in some cases, and that they serve over the life of the project in order to curate this. That is, create a collection that is interrelated and tells a larger story than the individual works of art. They, of course, will be advisory to you as the members of the commission. You'll review their work on a kind of periodic basis and eventually make recommendations to the city council for adoption. So artist selection processes. I gave a lot of thought to this, and I will share with you up front one of my biases, and that is I never recommend that you request proposals from artists. It is fair to put out requests for qualifications so that you can review the past work of the artist and then perhaps create a smaller group of finalists. But when you ask for proposals, a couple of things happen. One, you might get 50 artists that are preparing a proposal representing hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of artist time when one artist is going to get the commission. So it's not fair to artists. It has also been the experience that the best artists regard these as cattle calls and won't submit for proposals. In other words, they want to be compensated for their design time. So you'll see that there are several iterations of the idea of request for qualifications. They may have the art selection committee may have a very well-defined idea for a particular project and say, okay, we want to look at these 5 or these 7 artists. In other cases, they may want to open it up, see what's out there. So they issue an open request for qualifications. In very specific circumstances, they may have a very clear idea of who or what they want on the site and do a direct selection of an artist. That isn't used very often because often it's more useful to see what's out there. And then finally, there are circumstances, for instance, if you do a temporary art program, it's not inappropriate to ask artists to do some initial design work so you can see what they're putting up there. But again, that's not used very often. So again, there's the artwork map. As you can see, it's quite a concentration of projects. Now, I want to go through the 4 priority projects that we, along with staff, have identified, and we'd like you to ponder that tonight and hopefully ratify our recommendations with regard to the priority projects, and there are 4 of them. The first is at the eastern terminus of E Street, just shy of the levee and the Riverwalk. And it should be a wayfinding. One of the things we've tried to do is establish some view corridors or view sheds along the major streets to invite people to come to the river. The river isn't obvious when you're standing down on 2nd and C Street. You can't see the river, and so part of these projects are meant to attract or invite people to enjoy this extraordinary amenity that you have in the form of the river. I like the idea of a kind of suspended, very colorful kind of projects. These are suggestions for the Art Selection Committee. It's a very high priority project in my mind because it really would establish right up front a major work. And I'll show you a little bit more detail about that. There's the existing view, and as you can see, you can't see the river, even though the river is 50 yards away. probably less than 50 yards away. So if you can imagine a major colorful sculpture suspended over that area, inviting people to come to the river. For these priority projects, we will have in the final report a very specific site plan for each of them, and we'll articulate some of the technical and other considerations. And the landscape architect firm, ACHP, that we're working with and who is preparing these plans and drawings for us, have suggested some ancillary projects that might be explored in the future. The second is the retrofit or the relocation of the historic water tower. As you may know, when the I Street Bridge connection is completed, it will pass right through where the water tower is. And so it is felt important that the water tower be retained as a historical artifact and a kind of beacon that people are used to. When we drove across the river, we realized that you can see the work from the other side of the river. So there's a kind of way to create a visual connection between Sacramento and West Sacramento. So I would hope that it's very colorful, at least lighted at night, or maybe a light treatment to create it. You can see the existing conditions, and you can see in the upper photo the water tower showing from the opposite side of the river. Now, on this map, we're going to have to do a lot of work on this, and there are a lot of unknowns. The exact alignment of the connection to the I Street Bridge has not yet been established, so it's been hard for us to pinpoint the exact location. We'll be doing some work on that, and hopefully we will have an answer for you when we meet with you again in June, where we can pin this down a little more accurately. But it was important to retain this as a historical artifact. Again, our landscape architects have suggested some kind of programmatic kinds of things that could go. We want the art to be integrated into the whole circulation system, in the whole parks system, and so we've suggested some additional things that can take place beyond the treatment of the water tower itself. The third project is at the intersection of where Grand Avenue splits off and West Capitol Way goes under the underpass. And the current plan for that area across to the south of that site is what they call civic center zoning. That is, there will be a commercial district there, and it'll be really kind of an interesting entryway into the Washington district. So we have felt that it needs to be a major kind of statement that says you've arrived at a kind of special place. And so we have a couple of examples of works that demonstrate that the kind of scale that we would think is there, and that are appropriate to what will be, at least along the south side of that street, a kind of commercial district.
Would you prefer questions at the end?
Whatever you, please.
Originally, the sculpture across the street was intended for Rayleigh Field. The baseball sculpture done by Lisa Rennertson in 1991, loaned from the Crocker. And, it's such a baseball town that the entryway, if that sculpture could be considered moving, I don't know what the cost would be or how to do that, but that as an entryway, I think, would be most dynamic.
We'll certainly take a look at that.
Well,
It's an
I
interesting
can
idea.
add just a tiny bit to that. The artist insists that it's exactly placed.
The distance,
Regulation distance from the, there you go. Yeah, whatever that is, from the.
Amount.
And so it has to be in a, place.
yeah, the two works
that has to
work
be
in
very
conjunction with
carefully
one another.
Placed.
But we'll take a look at that. It's an interesting idea. These are existing conditions. As you can see, there's a kind of triangular site on the north side of the site, and then, of course, there'll be significant development on the south side of the site. Again, the plan, you can see it cited there. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see where that's a prime development site and where eventually, as I understand it, it'll be a mixed-use kind of development with both commercial and residential. And again, you can see in the upper left-hand side, a grand kind of statement by Alexander Calder, and some programmatic ideas that might be associated with the site. And the final one of the priority sites is a sculpture on the Riverwalk at the end of, which street is that, David? You remind me. Right, there's a proposed linear park that, and it's just north of the Tower Bridge, maybe 75 or 100 yards north of the Tower Bridge on the Riverwalk. Again, it should serve as a beacon to draw people to the river. I would suggest that you could do a major vertical work at that site, and again, potentially have a work that is visible from the other side of the river. So there's the site, and you can see, if you walk all the way, sort of the end of the walk, you're at the landing of the Tower Bridge. Again, a map of the site. So it's right adjacent to the Ziggurat building on the south side, or the southeast corner. And again, some ideas for programs as well as artwork. Now, there are several projects that you reviewed in February when we met with you, and I won't go through all of those again. You've seen those. You'll see them again in the final report that we'll present to you in June. But these are the ones that you've already looked at. So there are a number of projects that you haven't seen that we didn't present at that time. The first is an opportunity at the intersection of Grand Avenue and Tower Bridge Gateway. There are a number of low walls that surround that intersection, and again, it would make a sort of colorful, interesting introduction to the Washington District to have artwork on those walls. They're just plain concrete walls at this point. So there's an opportunity to introduce some color and to sort of do the ceremonial thing of that sense of entry into the Washington District. Whoops. We don't have maps of all of these. We were really asked to develop in complete detail the 4 priority projects. There is a park that is not yet, a site not yet owned by the city off of 7th Street, and it's a site that has a couple of heritage trees that the city wants to save. It's not a big park, and so we thought that is a park that could have a kind of family orientation, that a children's play sculpture might be appropriate for that site.
Excuse me, 7th and what? 7th?
Help me out.
It would be an extension to the south of where 7th ends now. It's a big lot.
Okay.
West Capitol.
Is it West Capitol?
From one local to another.
Thank
So
you.
it's where the Welcome Grove site is. 7th Street dead ends at the Welcome Grove site, and then
Okay.
we've built the new section of 7th Street on
Okay.
Tower Bridge Gateway. We would connect those two, and to protect some of the old growth trees that are within the Welcome Grove site, we would put a park in the middle of the road, similar to Garden Park that's in the Bridge District.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She knows the geography a lot better than I do, so thank you.
Welcome Grove, then we knew it should
Okay. The linear park, we just saw the plan for the sculpture, the number 4 project. Along the south side of the Ziggurat building, there is a strip that is owned by the city. There's some uncertainty about what the width of that will be, but we're suggesting that a linear sculpture or other treatment go along that linear park. But it may change because there are negotiations going on with the developer of the site immediately south of that. So hopefully we'll have an update for you at some point. The restroom, there is an existing restroom at the terminus of E Street on top of the levee. It needs to be dressed up a little bit. It's sort of not very interesting building, and so we're suggesting that it be wrapped. It's not going to be relocated because anytime you make a penetration of the levee, suddenly you have to get a lot of other agencies involved in permitting that process, the Corps of Engineers, the Flood Control District, and so on. So we have assiduously avoided where we can any penetrations or major work on top of the levee because it complicates things in a very significant way. But again, it can be colorful and inviting. It can either be a photographic wrap or it might be an opportunity for an artist to paint murals. We also thought that there might be a potential of some sort of historic theme associated with it. Now I want to talk about some of the other things that we've been working on. And one of the really important things that the public art program can do is create a kind of sense of community togetherness and community identity, and to reinforce the character of a neighborhood. When it's fully built out, the Washington district is going to be a really terrific place. The plans are really extraordinary. And so we want the public art program to add value to what is going to be a terrific place for people to live, but also for people to visit. One of the things we're excited about this idea of a national collection is it's going to draw a lot of people eventually to the district. And we would hope, we would expect, would put West Sacramento on the map in the same way that we know about the Stewart Collection at the University of San Diego, California at San Diego, or the Lohmeyer Sculpture Park in St. Louis. These are real attractors of people and people who love the arts. So you can see some of the things that we think will help reinforce the character of the neighborhood. You're going to envy the people who live in that neighborhood eventually. It's going to be a great place to live. Often the question of set-asides for local and regional artists come up. And here's my view of that. First of all, the number one goal of any public art program must be to commission art of the very highest quality and of enduring value. Why is that? Because if you cast something in bronze and put it in a public space, it might be there 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, if you look at the experience of Europe. So quality and enduring value is goal number one. That doesn't mean local and regional artists don't create art of enduring value. And we're suggesting as a policy that the art selection committee, or the artist selection committee, always consider for each project that comes along, local and regional artists. There are also occasions where if it's a small-scale project, they may create a geographic limitation on a particular project and say, okay, we're only going to look at artists from this region because a $50,000 budget doesn't go very far, and you don't want to bring somebody from New York City to do that because travel would eat up all the budget. So there may be projects where there is a geographic limitation on the project. Funding's a big issue. You know, public art is expensive. In many cases, these are pretty complicated projects. The Washington Realized Plan identified potential funding needs of $1.2 million. As we studied this and we studied the opportunity, it's going to be substantially more than that. Now, that doesn't mean that it will always depend upon city resources. I think when the word gets out there that what's going on here and what the intentions of your plan is for this, there will be grant money that can be found. I think there are individual philanthropists may have an interest. There may be corporations that want to sponsor a particular work and get the recognition that's associated with that. There are other impact fees that are potential funding sources. So it's not all going to fall on the city's shoulders to implement this plan, although it will take some work to go out there and identify the additional funding sources and to make sure that a set of partnerships and collaborations are put together to make this happen. I did want to mention, of course, is that you have an existing resolution that sets aside 1% of capital construction projects for city projects, and that's a potential source. There will be capital projects in the Washington district that presumably would be subject to your percent for art requirement, and that's an important source of funding. Of course, the city always has the option of augmenting that with either general fund or other capital funds. And particularly when the transportation infrastructure improvements come along, presumably we're going to push to make sure that they're subject to the 1% for art requirement. And that could add significantly to the monies that are available. Public art projects are complicated, and particularly when you're doing a big major project, they can get very complicated. There's going to be a lot of coordination. There are many players in a public art project. City departments that have to be dealt with, designers of the underlying capital projects with which they're associated, potential coordination with funders for the site. And so we want to establish a policy that kind of deep coordination takes place, and that going back to one of those early slides about alignment with existing policies, citywide policies, that takes place, or at least consideration of that takes place each time one of the projects go forward. There's a real possibility that the city can provide some offsets to private developers. There are going to be some significant private development in the area, and often when a major private development comes along, the city negotiates with the developer. The city might, for instance, say, you know, we'll give you a break on the number of parking spots you have to have, but you need to support this public art projects, for instance. That's just one example of that. Or the setback requirements or the floor area ratios in the development might change. And those are all points for negotiation where additional revenues might be found to support the projects. I want to talk about staffing. This is a big thing that we're putting in front of you, and it's going to take professional staff to coordinate the project. That might be a permanent city staff person, it might be someone that's engaged on contract with the city, but, the public art program manager is in a partnership with the artist and all of the other players, and they're the nexus of all of these competing, often collaborating, but sometimes competing interests that come to bear on a site. And so we think it's very important for you to keep in mind that some staffing will be required to pull this off, to manage the artist selection committee, and to provide you with the staffing you need so that you can follow the progress of the program.
Excuse me, whose budget is that going to come out of?
I'm going to defer again to.
Just want to hear what they-
This was part of an issue paper that we presented to council during their retreat and received some direction on, and Tracy and I have been working on the issue, and we don't have an exact recommendation, but we do have some existing funding sources, like even in the Bridge District, there's a maintenance CFD, and it includes a line item for staffing, and there are some other ideas that we have developed in terms of, potential funding sources, including the 1% set aside that the Arts Commission controls. It's something that it could determine it wants to support an initial 1 year of staffing or initial 25% of a person. So those are the areas that we're looking at.
Thank you, Kate.
One of the really interesting things about this whole project is that it emerged out of a collaboration between the City of Sacramento and the City of West Sacramento. And I don't know if you know how unusual that is for cities to collaborate in that way. And to me, it's a very interesting aspect of this project. And our hope would be that there are additional projects that come along in the future where the city is collaborating. You have this shared extraordinary asset in the river, and to the extent that you can reinforce the citizens and the residents on each side to appreciate that is a nice opportunity that's presented by the plan. And of course, collaborations with the private sector. There are lots of opportunities in this. I suspect that as the project begins to develop, there's going to be a growing kind of community awareness of the project once some of the major works go in. And people are going to get interested in it. We think that there's real collaboration with the private sector to happen on this. People, both individuals and corporations, may want to sponsor, for instance, particular opportunities. And there are a number of ideas that we've suggested there that where this kind of collaboration can take place. So, as Katie Yancey said early on, we're really bringing this forward to you to get your general agreement with, one, the 4 priority projects, the 4 additional projects that we shared with you tonight, and the policy narrative. So that's what we're asking of you, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions that you might have.
I know we have questions. Who would like to begin? Questions?
I have a concern about having the selection committee basically design what they think should go in an area, whether it's aerial or whatever it is, before an artist ever puts their finger on it.
Right. And in most cases, let me respond to it in this way. And that is that for every prescriptive thing that you put on a project up front, you define away 10 good possibilities for each one that you create. And so it is appropriate for the Art Selection Committee to say, you know, one of the possibilities in this site is a suspended piece, but not require that up front. Rather to suggest what the possibilities are of the site and then see what the artists produce. Give them the latitude. You know, artists are really good at understanding public spaces in ways that the average person doesn't necessarily understand those spaces. They see it in a different kind of way. And so your point is very well taken that it should be suggestive but not prescriptive in the, once they issue a request for qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? You know it. Go ahead, Julia.
Attachment 1, page 5, I'm confused by item number 4, supporting additional facilities for workshops. Are you recommending acquiring facilities? I don't understand that statement.
Let me refer to that. My partner has the.
Attachment 1, page 5, number 4, expanding opportunities to work with experienced artists, maintaining local artist information for local acquisitions, and supporting additional facilities for workshops. Is that meant to say supporting additional workshops?
Yes.
Okay, the facilities
Yeah.
confused me.
Facility shouldn't be in there. It's workshops. One of the really interesting opportunities in a program like this is that if you bring in, you know, a Mel Chin or a Beverly Pepper, to have them work with local and regional artists when they're on site is a real opportunity, a real learning opportunity for local and regional artists. And I would hope that that the committee, when they begin to contract with artists, they negotiate some involvement with local artists.
This city is all about mentorship, so that would be a real plus for the program.
Yes.
Is the committee going to be doing the hiring of these people or contracting with these artists, or?
No, but they can suggest elements of the contract. The contracts, of course, have to go through the city attorney. Then the project will come forward, the design will come to you. You'll pass that on to the city council, and then there'll be a negotiation, probably with city staff, hopefully with your public art program manager that you will have engaged by that time. And when that contract is negotiated, my hope is, in the programs that I have managed, I've always tried to build in a kind of mentoring opportunity for local artists, especially when a real high-profile artist is coming into the community. It's a great opportunity and a real feather in the cap of the local or regional artists that to have an opportunity to work with an artist of that stature. So.
And certain projects can become a launching point for a regional or local artist. I'm thinking of the restroom wrap and the mosaic or other wall treatment. That's something that could really help a local artist become a public artist.
Absolutely.
I have concerns about this staffing bit because I think to do it right, we need to have somebody who can put time and focus on this. So when you mentioned maybe a 25% staffer, how do we accomplish this with a 25% staffer?
Good evening, Chair, Commission members.
Hello.
I think there are many ways we can start. We can start with part-time positions. We can start with contract positions. we can look at consultants that would serve in that role because they've, had that role in jurisdictions here locally. So I think first we have to figure out what is the requirement of this particular program and then look at the resources that we have and determine if, determine what kind of staffing we would recommend, understanding it's not going to be what we would like, but I would say, necessarily as a full-time position, but the council is interested in updating our art program and policy citywide, and so this, right now, we're just focused, we have this NEA money, we're getting this plan done, but there would be another look at things on a citywide basis, which would also mean, additional, maybe full-time staffing of, as the, now a director, but the staffer that was managing those selections, it's very time-consuming to do them well and to get good results, so.
And there's a specific breadth of knowledge required to understand construction that is going to last and be safe, and
Absolutely.
that was eye-opening to me on a panel I sat on, things that never occurred to me.
Right.
It's a lot more than what looks cool.
Well, I think, and that's one of the challenges we have is people, certain, people advocate for local artists. We all want local artists, but you have to pull a building permit. You have to have an engineer. You have to have an electrical engineer. You have to have fabricators that you know and trust. So it's not just a matter of a promotion on the part of the city. It's building that expertise that we need in our local and regional artists.
Katie, would there be a possibility with the grant of getting a 10% administrative within the grant to maybe fund additionally hours of that person?
Well, right now, we've been very successful with securing grants for specific installations. I've not looked at any opportunity where we could get a grant for a staff person. I think that would be challenging, but where we have gotten a grant for the, Mill Street Pier or for the subtile installation, that grant can reimburse and did reimburse some of the, administration, selection, management costs.
Some grants allow you to take as much as 10% for administrative override.
Right, so we have done that with the grants that we have, and we have gotten reimbursement for some of our administrative costs for those installations. But in terms of a permanent staff person, we still have to figure out what's the permanent source of revenue for that.
It would make us so happy.
It really would, absolutely. If it's fiscally sound, we would love to have someone, I know you would too, on staff that's dedicated to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may also to build on and support what Katie was saying, is that what's nice about this, the draft content for the plan and also what's come out of the City Council's strategic planning effort is just a recognition that to grow our public art, it really does require some dedicated staff. And we've been trying to do it internally for some time now. And we're at a point where we need to look at, how we can make a commitment to provide the right staff to support the growth of our art, our public art. And we're in the middle of our 2-year budget planning process right now. And so right now, we're at a point where we really don't have the answers because that effort needs to continue to move forward so that we know what resources we have to work with as we look forward in the near and long-term future. So my hopes is that this plan and the feedback that you provide and that City Council provides will guide us for our citywide public art strategy update. This is kind of lays a nice groundwork for us, and that we could build off of what's being done as we look to that citywide plan and identify staffing needs beyond the Washington district. So I think we don't have the answers today, but it's something we're excited to start working on once this effort kind of moves forward.
Thank you.
While Tracy's online, on the 7th Street Park, Tracy, how many oaks are there? 2 will survive, but are we taking out oaks there?
I don't know how many oaks are there. I know we did pick up that park, though, in our Park Recreation and Open Space Master Plan as a new park that wasn't originally identified in the Washington Realized Plan. So we have that included, but we don't have the the tree count unless you do, Katie.
I don't know the species, but my understanding is it's 4 trees that we would be able to preserve with the park.
Oh, 4, not 2.
Wait, I don't know if they're all heritage size, but my understanding is it's 4 trees that we would be able to preserve with the park. So I'm not an arborist by training, so I apologize, but my understanding from the civil engineer who drew the park in relationship to the road, he said it looks like it's 4 trees we're preserving.
Nice.
Well, I like to preserve them all, but that's just me.
I was going to say, I want to thank Julia for always looking after the trees for us. Thank you. That's important.
It is important. I'm a dedicated tree planter. I have 10 acres, and I'm planting trees all over it.
Wow.
Well, I consider the natural world the height of aesthetic consideration. I consider that, it's so good we're as a part of parks because I think it goes together very well. And, in consideration of the E Street sculpture, as Jeff's poem, which you've included in the packet, thank you for that, it might be good to develop some of those images in that, whether it's the fishing or the water spout kind of image, the river,
Oh, very interesting.
that would be part of that. And in terms of the number 2 water tank retrofit, with the Native American Museum being installed, that
the
could be
north
a
of that,
very
yeah.
good focal point for bringing something that would honor the Miwok and some of the other Native tribes that lived on that river, and also as a gateway to the Native American Museum down that path. But
I see my partner taking detailed notes, so
I would just love to see the Native American culture
very
brought to the
interesting
river.
idea.
I have a few more comments if you bear with me. Or maybe I don't.
Mr. Schatzel, do you want to, while she's looking? No?
Also, the Paseo underpass, which is not a priority project, but it would be wonderful if the youth of this community, I find a lot of, Banksy art and graffiti art fascinating. I like at the Sam Combs Park here, looking at those propane tanks, because I can't believe the mastery of the spray can there. But I would love to see youth put a stamp on that underpass, because the coloring is so vivid, and in turn, it gets the youth of the community a little bit invested in what's there, which, and just in terms of sentimentality, I would like the Riverwalk signage kept, but that's just a personal preference. I think it marks it gives us we've used that as kind of
Yes.
meet me at the Riverwalk kind of thing. And I love the idea of some sort of climbing thing for children at the 7th Street Park. That would be
Right.
wonderful. And in terms of the linear park entry, the river's history, all along the Riverwalk, you can read about the grain mills, the transportation, all of that. That would be a wonderful focal point for a linear history of West Sacramento.
And we did discuss that a little bit in the February meeting, the possibility of doing some historically related work there.
The tunnel between Old Sac and the downtown plaza, or what used to be the downtown plaza. I'm fascinated by, it's very old and pretty ugly by now, but just that historical sense that they
Yes.
put in there. Also, I would like to direct your attention to the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport bathroom. It's vivid blue, and it would be a counterpoint to Subtile, I think. A reflective blue on that would bring the water theme and
Right.
indicate that it is a restroom. And I'm very excited about all of this. As you could see, I wouldn't have so many comments if you hadn't activated that in me. So thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to say that I appreciate the saving of the heritage trees in Welcome Grove, as the locals know it. And just so that you're aware that the Historical Society has items of places that the locals know of and has gone away. So if any artist wanted to repurpose any of those items, like a sign or something,
Oh.
we have those available, and maybe we could do something. So they have, instead of being in a warehouse somewhere,
Yes, absolutely.
and then like those concrete walls with the mosaic, that'd be great to showcase some of that history.
That's a great
Maybe of the
idea.
4 communities that came together for one city. So, other than that, I'm very excited for this project, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am. These first 2 comments got me thinking about trees. The Welcome Grove was a historical building, series of buildings that were there one day and gone the next. And it's interesting to now hear about the trees, and we're going to save 4, I think there's more than 4 trees out there, which leads me to the impression I had when I was driving around the Washington neighborhood, looking at these things, and I got very possessive. Okay, when we built that, it's going to be here, I got very protective. The trees in the Washington neighborhood, Julia would argue, are art, but yet, if we don't have shade,
Yes.
nobody's going to go out there with an ice cream cone and look at the art.
Yeah,
So
it's hot
the
out there
trees-
today.
Okay, so the trees, I think, in the Washington neighborhood, the architecture in the neighborhood are all worth preserving from an artistic perspective, and it ties into the overall plan that you have here. I found the street signs out there, faded green, rectangular block letters. We can do better than that. And I know when you mess around with fire hydrants, the fire department gets a little
Yes, they do.
antsy, but, they're yellow, boring, You can, in the same way you want to wrap something around the restroom, or, to me, I work in Land Park, so they have historic light fixtures that we've been working on. The trees there are so terrific, the light fixtures don't work because they're so big and dark. But it does contribute to the overall culture that you addressed and atmosphere of that neighborhood.
Right.
So I'm thinking, well, we need to fix all that, preserve all that, try to find a way to make all that work so the art is not vandalized or the art is appreciated, the whole
Indeed.
package, like the poetry, like the landscaping we've done, the streetlights we've done. To me, it's a whole. So I was trying to remember what's in the Washington plan and then what's in the general plan and what does the tree ordinance say? And we don't have a historic preservation ordinance, which is something else we might want to think
That
about.
surprises me.
Because it all ties into what you're talking about here. How much money do we have in the 1% set aside?
Yeah.
That ballpark?
Ballpark is
$1 million
around, I think it's
either
around
way?
$60,000.
60, all right.
Yeah, we're trying to true up that account as part of our budget planning process right now, but it's around there.
Do you have any idea how much we spend on maintenance on the art we have so far? Just a ballpark.
I don't know, but I would say like the subtile, which is a very recent piece of art, hasn't required too much maintenance. But I don't have that information.
We're not spending any money.
The Bridge District Maintenance, CFD, was established including, because we knew when we were doing the urban design of that district that we wanted to include large pieces of art. And so we included the maintenance of the art pieces in the CFD, so it doesn't touch any other city funds, but I don't know exactly how much we've spent.
Can't be a lot though, huh?
I will say that on the Mill Street Pier, on the kinetic art, that people have damaged it, so we've had to call, they thought it would be cool to go ride it, and so we've had to
Yeah.
call the original fabricators back in, but since then, we've got cameras on it, we're monitoring it, and we haven't had any other problems,
Okay.
so.
Right it.
So-
You're raising a very important issue. Maintenance, deferred maintenance is the Achilles heel of public art. And there's nothing that, in my experience, raises the ire of the citizens for the city to invest significant money in a work of art and then it deteriorates in some way. So making provision for the conservation of these works are essential, and we'll, of course, be providing you in the final report with procedures and the policies needed to support that. because it's very, very important.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have one other point. I know that we were able to secure recent legislation which allows us to use the EIFD funds for maintenance. So I know that's something I've talked to Aaron about with regard to the Washington District and the ability, those are really reserved primarily for transformative infrastructure and investments where there's going to be a return to the city taxpayers. However, we will have some ability to use that for maintenance as needed as we start investing in these pieces.
Cool.
An additional comment, I have a preference for local artists. We have international artists here like Thomas Berry and Thomas Ramey, who did the Indianapolis
Yes.
Stonehenge. So right here locally, we have artists of international repute, and that would be economically sensible to have proximity.
And that's
whenever
why we
possible.
want to establish a policy that the Artist Selection Committee consider local artists in every project, even if it's the biggest and most expansive project in the system, they need to look at local and regional artists.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Any action required of us, or have we made our comments known?
I believe that Economic Development and Housing staff was looking for feedback on the plan, but no formal action at this point. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. We have this is a workshop, so we're just requesting your feedback. The outline that you received in your packet, as well as the draft narrative and the draft art concepts, you will be seeing back in a formal document at the next meeting, which is on June 24th, and we will be asking for you to take informal action at that time, which is to recommend approval to the City Council for all of the policies and art concepts that are included in that document.
Thank you. And we'll be looking for a little more on that budget, how this is going to be funded as well at that time. We'll have questions.
Of course, and I
But
would
we
just...
love it.
Yeah, of course, and I would just wanted to add to that point, I was unable to come up when all that was happening, is that part of this issue is going to the city council and asking them, instead of doing the one-offs, which is how we've traditionally done art, is going and looking at it as it's a collection and asking them to embrace all of the structures and mechanisms necessary to sort of curate that. So we are in a bit of a chicken and an egg situation where we need your blessing to say, yes, that's the correct approach, and it's blessed by this commission. We bless all those structures and mechanisms, and then some of the budgetary stuff will come. So I would just like to ask for your patience that we will do our best to answer your questions, but part of it is going to the city council, who does approve all the budgetary requirements, and say, do you agree that this is the appropriate lens to take moving forward? And therefore, do you then bless all of the structures and mechanisms, including things like staffing that come with it? So we will try, but I would just ask you to be patient, because we do need to go and ask the council, please bless this approach, which is part of what we'll be asking for your approval on the 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a real privilege to work on this project, and we'll see you in June.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So this brings us to Agenda Item 4, consideration of support for City Council resolution advocating designation of the Bright Memorial Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall as a California State Historical Landmark. Are you Mr. Robinson?
I am.
Hi.
Hi. I'm in kind of the unusual situation. I've got people on the panel to which I'm presenting that know more about this project than I do, so my whole presentation is made with all appropriate humility. I'm John Robinson. I'm with the City Manager's Office. The purpose of my presentation is to present information about the Bright VFW Hall, which the West Sacramento Historical Society is proposing, or is going to nominate as a state historical landmark, and they've requested the City Council's support for that. I'm here to ask that the Commission recommend that the Council in turn prepare or approve a resolution of support for that nomination, and to provide just a little background to support that. So all this information's in your staff report, but basically the building was constructed in 1945. It was initially intended to be a kind of a movie theater, and that economically did not work out well. The floors were not slanted, and the seats were, I would imagine, folding chairs of some kind, so that was not economically viable. So I believe in the next year it sold to the VFW, but there was kind of an ongoing collaboration between the original owners and the VFW, so there continued to be dances and other events there. As it's shown in the application, apparently the primary historic significance of the building is that from between 1952 and 1957, it served as home to a separate VFW post 9054, which was the first all-Native American VFW post in California. And then as part of that, the hall hosted all kinds of different events and meetings that apparently have kind of a connection to people that have gone on to be important to the Native American, the revival of Native American heritage in Northern California. So that's kind of the historical background of the building. The building itself is fairly nondescript. You could say it reflects kind of the austerity of the immediate post-war period. So you'll see in the photographs in your application, there's not architecturally a whole lot to look at there. So from this layperson's perspective, I think that the primary interest is more kind of what happened there than the actual, aesthetic nature of the building. But the designation as a historical landmark would benefit the city in terms of preserving this place and also creating kind of a way to remind, future generations of West Sacramento residents of the important things that have gone on here. So from a staff perspective, we recommend supporting this, and I'd like to be able to go to the city council and tell them that you folks recommended approval of that resolution. So with that, I will turn it back to you folks and the West Sacramento Historical Society representatives on the panel who might have more to add on this.
A couple of questions. I realize that the continuation sheet was drafted in 2013, but I was a little disturbed by all the Indian references. And maybe that could be handled with a footnote saying that this was taken from actual history of the time and no way reflects, any. And in putting this forward, I do very much support this, Mr. Robinson. And I'm hopeful that perhaps a member of the Miwok tribe and some of our legislators, Ms. Matsui, can also bring a letter of support for this project when you put it forward.
That's a good idea. I'll communicate that. Or I guess you kind of just did also.
I could share a little bit about that. So we have sent requests for other tribes in the area to send letters of support, and we've received some already. And also from state and other local officials have sent letters of support. So we're pretty excited about this project. It's been a long process. Ileana and Maestros and Thomas Lewis were the ones in charge of the project, and for the last 3 years, it's been nonstop submitting applications over and over and over again for this nomination. So, it's important to point out that it is a point in time that's the important part that's being nominated, not so much the building. There's been confusion in the Bright area of what we have going on, but they're excited and they want to, well, what about the building? What about the other posts? But this post was an all-Indian post for 7 years, and that's what's being recognized.
Who owns the land and the building? Is it the local or is it
Sold to
overarching VFW?
I actually, that's the one question I anticipated and researched. It's listed as VFW Post 9498. I don't know legally what that means, but in the assessor's records, it's listed as that post number. So it doesn't say the national organization, it says that post.
Okay, commissioners, do you know it's all owned locally?
Well, it was Ramos family, but I don't know now who it is, yeah.
Any other questions?
I would just add on to what Alfonso was saying. The Historical Society has worked on this for 7 years.
7, yeah, 3 years
Back
from
and forth.
nomination, yeah.
There's another post in Southern California, as I recall, that was approved on the same basis. So we have a good application approach, because, if you're going to do it for them, you got to do it for Northern California too, but all the support is very helpful as they go through their approval process at the state level. But the Historical Society's done a lot of work on this for a lot of years, and it involves Sacramento State, the professors there, they had some grant writers there, they had some expertise through the VFW and the Native American Society. They've really done a lot of work to try to push this forward to the state. So thank you, John, for bringing this forward.
That's exciting. Any other questions or comments?
Good luck.
Question. Would this be the first facility in West Sacramento to be recognized as a state historical landmark?
No, I think we have two others. There's a cannery where it used to be present on the waterfront, and
Parish Garage.
yeah, there's two. There's a marker. Yeah, Parish Garage would be the closest one. Senator Garage right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Has a historical landmark marker. Yeah. The firehouse as well. Yeah. So. But this would be a period in time, not so much a building, which is pretty significant too. That's being recognized.
Staff, so are we voting on this?
Yes, it would be an action to support City Council approving a resolution to support the nomination.
So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll motion to support.
Okay. Second. So motioned by Commissioner Clower, seconded by Commissioner McMichael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're excited. Thank you so much. That brings us to general administration. Let's see. I think we can adjourn.
Director's report.
Oh, thank you. Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Jordan.
I'll allow it. Okay.
I will try to keep my report short this evening, but you may have already noticed from your meeting agenda that we have a new business manager in the Parks and Recreation Department. She's here this evening.
Oh, hi.
Erin Rivas.
in brown.
So I'm really pleased to announce that we have Erin joining our team. She's new to Parks and Recreation, but not new to the city. She's been with the city since 2006 and has worked in a variety of capacities, including redevelopment, economic development, flood protection. She's worked with Public Works. She has a stellar track record of applying for and being awarded grant funding for
We love that about you.
a variety of very high-profile projects. So we mentioned a few of them this evening. The Mill Street Pier project is something that Erin worked on and actually had to fight pretty hard to make it eligible for grant funding. The docks project, the formerly referred to as Rayleigh's Dock, the renovation of that dock is a project that Erin was successful in getting grant funding for. She's just worked on a number of other projects. So we're really excited to have somebody that has so much experience in a wide variety of areas that all play into Parks and Recreation and art on our team. So welcome to Erin. Erin Rivas. Rivas.
Welcome, Erin. Thank you.
Welcome to the good side.
I also wanted to announce that on April 17th, the City Council considered the final draft of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, and they did approve adopting that plan with some changes, so we're working to incorporate their feedback, and a final plan should be posted on our website shortly. As soon as it's available, I will email the commission members and with a direct link so that you can access that document. But in the meantime, the final draft version of that document is available on planwestsacparks.com, and you can find it there. It's very similar to all of the material that's already been shared with the commission before. We're really excited to get that adopted because that is providing us the roadmap for moving forward with the Prop 68. It's the statewide park development and community revitalization program, but there's actually a variety of other Prop 68 grant programs out there that have been funded. And so our master plan document has helped to prioritize projects that we can begin to move forward with and aggressively pursue grant funding. What I wanted to share with you regarding the statewide park development grant program is there's $255 million available right now. And there is, the projects have to either be geared towards new park development, park expansion, or park renovation. There are two major requirements that need to be met, one or both, for a project to be eligible. The project has to be in a location where the median income is below $51,026, or has to be in an area where there's a ratio of less than 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And State Parks has a tool that you can use. You can place a marker on sites, and you will see if that site is eligible based on those two criteria. So we're working right now to identify sites. We will bring an update back to you in June, but right now, we were hoping to target Bright Park as one of several projects that we would apply for grant funding for. And Aaron is working very closely with State Park staff because at a glance, it looks like it's not eligible. It does not meet the median income household requirements. We believe that it does and should, and so we're looking to see if there's some other options we can present to State Park so that we can implement that master plan. The other component of that is that there's an extensive community engagement process that's required to receive the maximum number of points in the evaluation process for each application. So to receive the maximum number of points, you need to have at least 5 community engagement meetings per project. That's a lot of community meetings, and so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. We'll keep you informed, but there's going to be so many meetings happening for different project applications that we want to make sure you have the right information that you can convey to people who may ask you questions about it.
Chair, I have a question. I think you may have just answered it for me when you were talking about points. The money that you mentioned is available statewide. Is it all competitive, or does West Sac guaranteed X amount of money because it's population?
No, there's
all competitive.
one portion of the Prop 68 funding is the per capita program.
Right, okay.
The per capita program is a guaranteed allocation based on your jurisdiction size,
Right.
but you don't just get a blank check.
No, you
But-
have to go through the
yeah.
paperwork, but,
It's approximately $250,000
okay, that was my
for
next
West
question. So
Sacramento.
250 for us, okay. Geez, I remember in the days it was 60. Wow.
For the statewide program, you can ask for up to $8.5 million per project, no match required. So it's a significant.
Get busy.
amount.
No, okay. Very good.
Yeah, we anticipate applying for multiple projects, which just means a lot of work by August 5th, which is the deadline. Something that we're considering with the projects is that because the state is so late in rolling out this particular stage or phase of the grant program, we have a very short performance period. So if we receive an award, we likely will not find out until first quarter of 2020. Projects must be completed by March of 2022. So that leaves you about a year and a half to get the project completed. So we're taking that into consideration when we look at potential projects, the environmental that might be required, regulatory requirements, and to make sure that we have projects that we feel confident can be completed in the performance period provided.
Excuse me, is there a possibility of providing an avenue for some community assistance to help host these events that you have to have, or these public engagement events? Maybe take some burden off staff by getting willing community members to participate?
Absolutely.
A booster organization, if you will.
We actually do receive extra points for partnerships that we can identify for not only the the initial stages of the project, but ongoing, if there are ongoing program partnership opportunities. So that's something we'll definitely consider. We are looking to see if we can contract with some of our on-call landscape architecture firms to assist, because one of the things you need to do with that community engagement process is clearly articulate how the input received is factored into the design. And so we want to make sure that we have enough technical support to do that. And so we're just starting that process right now. But if there's an opportunity to work with local organizations to help with that, we welcome that and appreciate any input you have on that. I did also want to just identify that art components are eligible features for this grant program. So that could be incorporated with each project site. Two more quick items. The City Council strategic plan on May 1st. The council did approve the strategic plan and action agenda for 2019. There are 2 items that our department is going to be focused on, well, 3 really. Implementation of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan was identified as an action agenda item, as well as updating our public arts strategy and updating our special events policy. So it's probably going to take a couple more months for us to roll out those efforts, but those are coming. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then in the past, we have held a Parks/Art tour for our commission members. We've opened it up to new employees. And so we have a number of new commission members this year on both our Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission, as well as this one. So I just wanted to let you know that it's something we're considering. We're working right now to identify potential transportation options sometime in the summer, maybe early fall when the weather cools down. So just, we'll be coordinating with you on potential dates.
That was fun last time.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Tracy, the new CalSTRS CalSTRS building, where the plan has gone in, is that going to have any public art as part of that new building, do you know?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if it is or not. It's based on our current public art strategy, it's not required to. But I do know that they are presenting some design elements to City Council this week. I can certainly follow up and ask the staff about that.
Also, I know we've asked this before, forgive my faulty memory. Have you identified all the art within the city?
We do need to update our inventory. We have identified it, but it's not in a document. So we did have a document that was completed a few years ago that had all of the public art completed at that time that needs to be updated.
Could we get even the rough first identification even before it's updated? Just so I can familiarize myself more with things I might not know about?
Sure, we can work on that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Will our meeting schedule be updated? I know last time we talked about making more meeting dates available instead of quarterly, since today was a special meeting.
Yes, I did follow up on that just to make sure I understood what the procedures were for doing that. And it's really at the commission's discretion. However, at this time, I think that for some of the items that we're working on, we might need a few months between each meeting in order to develop the information to, provide you with enough data to help us make recommendations to City Council. So at this point, I would like to continue with our current schedule, and if we really do see that we're needing to have more meetings, then the commission can elect to add them to the calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would like a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It was moved by Commissioner Schatzel and seconded by Commissioner Clower that we adjourn. Thank you.